There will be a chance later on to, we'll do the breakout rooms thing again in the middle. So I'm now delighted to welcome David van der Velde from Land Digital, who's going to talk to us about some of the work they do and some of their approach to designing digital projects. And that's all I'm going to say, because I'll probably get it wrong or steal his thunder. So David, can I hand over to you?
Thanks very much, Terry. I'm just going to do this screen sharing, hopefully. If you could just give me a thumbs up when you can see that.
Yeah, you can see that fine. Yeah.
Great. Easier so I can see people's faces to see if I'm hitting the spot. Okay. Hi. So I'm David van der Velde. I'm Commercial Director at Land Digital. And I'm going to talk about user-centered digital service design. How do we build digital services that actually work for the people who are going to use them? I've not had formal training in service design. It's kind of an approach that's evolved over 20 years of working in digital in the region. It's an approach that draws on design thinking, on lean and agile methodologies, on innovation. And to explain what I mean by that, I'm going to talk you through my own journey. And the other thing is, you'll notice the subtitle there, Why You'll Never See a White Elephant on a Skateboard. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but hopefully that will all become clear in the next 10, 15 minutes. So myself, as I mentioned, I've worked in this sector for 20 years. I worked for Zebra, who were the first web agency in Newcastle back in the 90s, when I can remember ringing people up saying, have you heard of the internet? So, you know, lots changed in that period. Makes me feel very old. I had 20 years running my own digital agency, Consultant Design, based in the Northeast. They were acquired by Land Digital at the end of last year, and I'm now Commercial Director at Land. What we do is strategy. We help organizations make the most of digital and data. We do design and branding. We do software development, everything from bespoke integrated software platforms. We do a lot of e-commerce, building Shopify websites. We're also working with aero-commerce in the Northeast, and increasingly no-code solutions, where we're helping organizations automate by connecting up different systems and thinking about sort of workflows and how to make people work more effectively. But we also do online marketing, pay-per-click content marketing. We've got clients from Tyne Tunnel to Honda. We also do a lot of work in the not-for-profit sector. So I've been involved in Tech for Good projects regionally and nationally. We work with Vaughan, who are the infrastructure organisation for the sector in the Northeast, the Equality Trust, and we're just launching an online platform we've developed called Canny Social, which is about creating a safe space for people to promote health and well-being, for people to connect online. We're in the process of writing our Canny Manifesto that will tell you what that's all going to mean. So, how did I get here? Well, about 5 years ago, I collaborated with Terry and RTC North and with Northumbria University on an Innovate UK research programme looking at crowdsourcing platforms. And some of you might recognise that image. That's the Boomerang platform we built a few years back, and that came out of that research, and it's still being used by the design community today. Really interested in crowdsourcing, because when we're building software for clients, I will often say to the client that the code is the easy bit. The difficult bit is knowing what you want it to do. And in crowdsourcing, in manufacturing, for example, I see manufacturing adopting practices that were very familiar to me from working in open source software communities, where you had these ecosystems of developers who were learning from each other and sharing knowledge about how to adapt code to different use cases. Now, as part of that research, I had the privilege of interviewing Roy Sandbach. For those who don't know Roy, he built his reputation revolutionizing the way innovation happened at Procter & Gamble. And then he went on to advise numerous institutions, including leading on the Northeast Innovation Strategy. And Roy said one particular thing that struck with me. He coined this phrase, as a definition of innovation, matching what's needed with what's possible to create value. And that resonated with me immediately. I heard it. And for me, it summed up what we do as service designers. It summed up what I've been doing in various roles over the last 20 years, going into organizations to understand the issues they face, identifying problems that need to be solved, and then bringing them together with designers, software developers to build solutions. And then when I came across, we've got a lot of designers here on the call, so I imagine most of you are familiar with the double diamond. This is the Design Council published this in 2003. When I came across this model, it seemed to chime with that idea. The first diamond is about exploring the challenge space, what's needed, and then the second, looking at what's possible and what the solutions are. And also really valuably brings in this concept of divergent and convergent thinking, opening up to explore different ideas and then focusing down on a particular problem or a particular solution. Now, in the software world, as soon as we launch a product or a prototype, we immediately start to generate loads more user data. So even if we've done loads of user research in advance of launching our solution, we're going to learn a lot more about the problem as it's experienced by different users once that service is out there in the wild. And in this respect, the double diamond can feel to me a bit linear and not necessarily aligned to an iterative development process, which might look something a bit more like this. And in this agile model, we still want to use divergent and convergent thinking as we explore and define challenges and solutions, but the emphasis is much more on cycles of iteration. And these models are really important. So they give structure to our approach and they ensure that we challenge our assumptions. And this is important because we human beings, especially when we hold positions of authority, we tend not to be comfortable with uncertainty. There's a tendency to jump straight from somebody identifying an issue or a problem to deciding, okay, let's build an app or let's buy in a new CRM. And it's a lot more difficult for us to just stay with the uncertainty and gain the benefits of what we learn in that space. And for organizations, investment in new software is inherently risky. And there have been many instances of organizations investing in costly and ineffective white elephants. And without a structured process to understand user needs and explore the challenge space, you risk going away and building a really great solution to the wrong problem. And I love this image. This is courtesy of CAST, the Center for the Acceleration of Social Technology. So what do we see here? Clearly somebody designed this gate, but what you can see shows you that what users actually want is quite different from what the designer had in mind. I like that because it tells a story. Another way of thinking about managing risk, thinking about knowledge and risk. So here's a really simple chart. And what we're saying here is, over time, how does our knowledge increase over time? And, obviously it's an approximation. And that's our knowledge of what's needed. So how well do we as solution providers understand the needs of our client, their business goals, their different users, different stakeholders? And how well does our client understand what's possible with the technology? At the beginning of the relationship, that knowledge is least, and obviously as we go through and we work together, we increase their knowledge on both sides. Oftentimes, though, the investment decisions are made at the beginning of that line. So that's the point where nearly all the resources are allocated, and that's the point where there's also the greatest risk. So taking a more agile approach is all about saying, how do we kick some of those decisions down the road so we can make decisions when we're better informed, when risk is smaller. So, white elephants. According to Google, you really won't find a white elephant on a skateboard. We'll get to the skateboard in a minute, but first the elephant. In the days of old Siam, the white elephant was sacred. If you really annoyed the king of Siam, he would gift you a white elephant. And that meant you had to feed and look after this elephant for the rest of its days. But you couldn't use it to do any work because it was sacred. Now, does that story remind you of any investments you've seen in digital? So just as done well, digital can help you achieve your goals, whether that's stakeholder engagement, increased turnover, or operational efficiencies. Done badly, it can lead to poor customer experience and increased costs. And we often see organizations with what we call inherited technical debt, stuck with ongoing costs to feed some white elephant that doesn't really work, or leaves them having to adapt their ways of working to fit the needs of the software rather than the needs of users. So how do we avoid white elephants? Well, simple, putting the user at the center. And how does that work? So this diagram shows a user journey. So what we aim to do is understand what is the user journey. And again, I imagine this will be familiar to a lot of you. Apologies if this is already what you know, but hopefully this is interesting to some. This diagram was actually put together by Beth Peake at Northumbria School of Design, who we worked with on a project to improve the effectiveness of family services. And it shows a parent's journey through the family service systems towards having a child referred into a special educational needs coordinator. And if we look at it in a bit more detail, we can see what's in here. So the user journey here is quite detailed. Essentially, we're considering the key points in the journey, and we're thinking about the user's feelings at that time. I'll just go quickly over some of the key points. So like a storyboard, we get to see the key steps here in the user's journey, with peaks and troughs in the graph representing how that user's feeling, how satisfied they are with the service, or how frustrated they feel at different points in the journey. And we can see at a glance how happy the user is, how well we're delivering. We can map the feelings along the top with happy, sad faces. And we got in there the different touch points. So how is our user interacting with the service? It could be via face-to-face meetings, remember those? Telephone, text, email, a letter, whatever. But at each step of the user interaction is mapped out. And we can see straight away that the user here is expected to make use of a lot of devices and touch points. Who are the stakeholders involved? So we've got our internal stakeholders, our external. We've got our different services, GPs, support workers, reception staff, admin staff, and then we've got the family, the mums, the dads, the kids, and all the rest of it. And of course, each of these has different priorities and needs that we need to take into account when we're designing a service that's going to work for them all. We also map out any barriers that the user encounters at each step, and we think about how to remove those barriers by turning them into design opportunities. So this example shows a barrier. Our user, Chris, he's having to wait a long time for the letter about an appointment. And he's feeling really frustrated because he's been to see his GP, doesn't know what's happening. The design opportunity there is really easy. We could just send him a text to keep him in the loop. It doesn't reduce the time that the letter is going to take to get there, but him receiving that text saying you will get a letter within 14 days massively reduces his frustration with the service. So that's the user journey, mapping the existing service. And then as we adapt it and test out these design opportunities, we can see how that changes the user journey and how that improves the user satisfaction. So this kind of customer journey mapping can be a great way to engage your teams in thinking outside of their own box, because finance have got their own priorities and marketing have got theirs and the developers have got theirs. But this essentially brings us all together to understand what we're doing and who for. And it doesn't have to be done in such an in-depth or complex way. Here's one we did earlier. This is a really simple thing. We got people to fold a piece of paper into 8, and in there, draw the 8 steps of a user journey. And on this one, this storyboard shows the user journey for somebody taking a flight to go on holiday. Anybody remember doing that? I don't know. So it's really simple, and it's a really good kind of way to get people talking. There's a lot more to talk about. I'm aware of time. I haven't got to the skateboard yet. So I'm going to run through a few bullet points. Mapping the user journey will usually bring up questions about who the stakeholders, users are, what do we know about them, what we'd like to know about them. We can build out user personas to make users more relatable. We use user stories. These are really vital, giving us a structured way of communicating to the developers, a shared understanding of what the software needs to do. They can help us prioritize resources so we can assess the likely cost and return on investment for each user story. And they also give us a means to define what complete looks like. So when we tell the client, well, we finished the software development, they've got a checklist of user stories they can test that against. And again, bearing in mind that our users might be internal as well as external users. Often the success of a new piece of software or a new way of working, it's about getting buy-in from internal staff. It's really important that their needs are met. Building out what we know about users in this way gives us a depth of understanding about what's needed, about the problem we're solving, and how those problems are experienced by different users. When it comes to solutions, 3 key points: thinking about helping organizations and individuals understand the ecosystems within which they're operating, who's out there trying or succeeding already at solving the same problem. Who else might be interested if you find a solution to this problem? What are the supporters out there in the ecosystem? And we've got loads of organizations like RTC who support this kind of service innovation. Not reinventing the wheel, open source software. It might be that you can build your own bespoke solution using freely available building blocks without having to spend huge amounts of money reinventing the wheel. There are many software as a service or no-code solutions out there now that even just 4 or 5 years ago, you would have had to spend a lot of money building your own system. Today, there's probably something for most of your needs. You can pay 50 quid a month, 100 quid a month, and start delivering value. Which brings us finally to the skateboard. So this image is from an agile coach at Mojang, Henrik Nyberg. And Mojang, parents among you will know, build Minecraft, an incredibly successful software company with 200 million sales worldwide. I didn't realize, but so let's say the problem is that you need to get your sales team out to visit clients across the UK, or you've got a team of support workers that need to visit families in their home, and you've got a transport budget. Well, you could hand over your transport budget to an expert. Let's say that Elon Musk, he knows a bit about getting from A to B. And before you know it, your entire budget is gone and you've got a shiny fleet of Teslas sitting in the car park. Sounds good, but it's only then that you find out that some of the sales team don't drive, or the charging infrastructure doesn't exist in the areas you're operating, or the roads aren't quite adequate, or whatever it might be. So your grand vision might be for Teslas for everybody, but a better approach is to start small. Maybe get everyone a skateboard and see how they go. And it turns out that 2 of the sales team are champion skaters, and they work in a congested urban area. So that actually solves the problem for them, and it's only cost you 50 quid. For the rest, it isn't going to work though. They keep falling off. So maybe you spend a bit more and you get them a scooter, or as you can see at the next step, a motorbike, bicycle, a motorbike, and maybe in the end, you end up that a car is the solution. But by the time you get to that point, you're making that investment decision based on user knowledge and not assumptions. The top line in the diagram shows an approach where you're spending a little bit at each stage, but you don't have anything usable until the car is complete, until you've spent the entire budget. Using the skateboard model, you deliver some value at each stage. So that is why you will never see a white elephant on a skateboard. And if you're looking to develop new digital services, then my first question to you is, what does your skateboard look like? And I shall leave you with that. And if anyone's got any questions, please fire away.
Thanks, David. If you could turn off the screen share, if you wouldn't mind, so we can all show our appreciation in what is now the normal manner with a bit of jazz hands. Not as noisy as the old applause.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. I forgot to mention at the beginning, I did put it in the chat, but if anyone has any questions for any of the speakers, just put them in the chat as we go. But does anyone have any questions for David, or any points or observations? You give me a wave and I'll ask you to ask the question. Anyone? That usually means that you've blown their minds just a little bit, David, and now they're just trying to cope with it all. So Sam, you've got a, oh sorry, was that for David? No, sorry, Sarah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so any advice on handling a funding culture that's premised on requesting funding for a solution? So I think this has been particularly true in the voluntary sector I've seen. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but so particularly in the voluntary sector, we would find somebody would come to us saying, we've got a budget, we've got the trustees have signed off on this budget, the board signed off, can you build this, can you give us a quote for building this? And we'd then be in this position of, well, we want to help you, but have you actually done any user research? How do you know that this is going to work for the people? And we suggest spending some time on research to de-risk the decision. And that's often a difficult sell, because the person who's coming to us has battled really hard with their boards to get justification to get this budget. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. Just give us a quote to build this and build this, because that's what they've agreed. And I think my approach to that is to talk about risk. I think in terms of the voluntary sector, certainly the funding culture is starting to change. So the lottery, working together with organisations like Catalyst, are really pushing forward this agile, lean approach. So they are not funding big digital projects unless they can see clear evidence of user research and that you've been through this process. I think in industry, it's an easier sell because people are more aware of managing risk. Don't know if that answers the question. Oh, no. Really interesting one there from Jackie.
Jackie, would you like to ask David your question? It's much better if you ask it rather than just reading it on the
I will. Sorry, I've just switched my video off because of my bandwidth.
Sorry.
So yeah. So I've been just hopping in and out of lots and lots of different networks, I guess, and communities, and obviously everyone is really trying to prioritize the environment in some way or another. So one of the interesting kind of models I've been hearing about, or approaches, is to actually include the environment as a persona in and of itself when you look at, your mix of users, because otherwise, I mean, you might get people, I suppose, from an environmental or carbon footprint sort of management role, but that notion of like having had the pandemic, how do we now really prioritize those aspects of uncertainty in really practical ways in a design process? And I was also really interested actually in why you think the double diamond is a bit linear, like the limitations of the double diamond and how you bridge those gaps. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, first consideration in terms of environmental side of things, I haven't come across that idea of including the environment as a persona in the design process, but it makes a lot of sense. And legislation is coming in now, which is increasingly forcing businesses to account for their impact on the environment, and it absolutely makes sense in just the same way that you might, you're going to include financial considerations or operational impact of the way you develop a service. So I don't really have anything to say to that other than that's a great idea and I'm going to borrow it. And the second question about the double diamond and why I felt it was a bit linear, and I haven't got a sort of formal training in service design. it comes across to me as a little bit like you explore the problem and then you do the solution. And what we find is that what works a lot better is this kind of iterative process of develop a little bit of value and put that out there and then add a little bit more on, a little bit more on. And I'm not saying that the double diamond isn't about that, but it's sort of, I don't know, I guess it comes across that way a bit to me, but in my lack of design training.
Helen, you had a couple of responses to that. Would you like to kind of chip in on that?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the information to share in the chat, but the Design Council have just last month launched a new iteration, I guess, of their double diamond, which brings a whole new sustainable lens on it, and it looks a little bit deeper in terms of not only the process, but almost like the personalities and the values that need to sit behind it to kind of have more of a sustainable approach. It's fascinating, and I will drop a link in the chat. But I was working on a design recently which had sustainability at its heart, and I did find that problem in that a lot of the tools that we use as designers are human-centered, and actually sometimes for sustainability we do need that kind of planet-centered approach, which can maybe be jarring for people in the short term. You know, sometimes we look to design to make life more comfortable for people and more efficient for people and make people happier. But sometimes actually, if we're going to commit to sustainability, I think we've got to kind of put some skin in the game, go, actually, this is going to be a bit painful and difficult for us, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, if you could share that, Helen, and that, I'll send it around in the email next week as well. With
I'll do that right now.
That'd be brilliant. Chris, you made a point in the chat there. Did you want to mention something?
Yeah, I just thought, in contrast, I think it's just an interesting topic, and it's relevant to me personally, about this, like the funding space in social technology. I felt like, in particular, the Northeast Social Tech Fund, the open innovation idea, I felt like, I don't know, I just didn't buy into it. I thought it sounded great, and I get it. I completely agree with David in some aspects. Oh, you need a well-researched idea, right? Well, all aspects, sorry, but in those who are looking for funding, basically may not have conducted that process. But in our case, with a well-researched and kind of an evidence-based design, we were to miss out on a funding opportunity which is so local to us and so relevant to what we try to do. The stumbling block was, well, actually, you have to come with a problem and not have even thought or alluded to the solution. We want people with just a raw problem. And I felt that was a shame and a little bit, I don't know, I think sometimes funding is a box tick, you know what I mean? I mean, we are that process entirely, and some of it has already been conducted by us, and that wasn't accounted for, I suppose.
Yeah,
That's just my view on it, like.
And so, I mean, I know a little bit about the Northeast Social Tech Fund that came from Software City, got some money to do this open innovation process. And I can see how it'd be frustrating if you've already got your user research and you've got your solution and all the rest of it. From my point of view, I think it was really forward thinking that they had managed to actually get funding to fund that initial bit, because usually that's the bit that isn't funded. And usually that's the bit that particularly charities fail to do. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it could be frustrating, but I don't have any solutions there.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, David. We'll leave that there. But what I'll do is, with all of the speakers, I'll be circulating their contact details later. So if you want to catch up with David and ask him any more about white elephants and skateboards and anything else, I'm sure he'd be happy to have a chat with you. But thanks again for that, David. I'd now like to introduce Jamie from the Rural Design Centre. Again, if you've got any questions for Jamie, just jot them in the chat, and then I'll invite you to ask them to him afterwards. But Jamie, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, thanks. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully this will work. One moment.
There we go. Yeah, we can all see that.
Can you see that?
We can, yes. Well, I can. Hopefully everyone can.
Okay, right. So So yeah, so hi, so I'm Jamie Campbell. I work at the Rural Design Centre. I was sitting in the breakout room. I had my jab yesterday, so a bit like I'm not feeling amazing, but I didn't have much sleep, and it might just be because I'm nervous. So because I do get a bit nervous. So yeah, so Rural Design Centre. So we've got some. We're an organisation that is funded. Well, the project that we're doing is funded with Advanced Northumberland Innovation Super Network. We work with Northumbria, Uni, Newcastle Uni, and it's I've got to get that in because they're buying the pizza. So, or they will be when we go back to real life, hopefully. So I was going to talk about some of the stuff that we've been doing and some of the methods that we use, which are aligned to service design methods. So my background is in user experience design for the last few years, so a lot more like digital. But before that, I've been a designer for quite a few years and worked across different disciplines and stuff. So I don't really stop at digital. So it's kind of good to see the before and after and all of the stuff around it. So, before I start talking about the stuff that we've been doing, I'll just introduce you to the team. So some of you will probably know Nick already. So Nick asked me if I'd come and do this, which was dead nice of him. So he tends to do that. We've got it's quite a wide, quite a small team, but really quite varied. Liz is really good with transport stuff and work with core wheels, and she's done a lot of stuff around that. Dennis works on the business advice stuff. There's David, myself, and Andy, who are design associates. And yeah, we're quite, we're dead lucky that everyone's really nice and quite from different backgrounds and stuff. So yeah, so some of the things that we do as a team. So business development, industrial product design, digital product design, service design, community engagement. Some of the stuff I used to do years ago was work with young people and community groups and do art workshops and engage people. And so it's really good from a UX or from a design perspective, because it's quite good to do workshops and get speak to people. That's what it's all about. And so yeah, so UX design, that's been me the last few years. Workshop facilitation, bid writing, that's Liz, and yeah, idea generation. That's when I first met Nick 20 years ago. That was I went to see him at the BIC, and that was that's how I met him initially. And Andy's more of the heritage management sort of stuff. So Rural Design Centre, what we're about is to try and help make life better in rural areas. So we identify issues and try and help to design solutions, but we're very much design with and not for. So we design with people. We're not an organisation to go in and say, we think you need this, therefore have it. This will solve your problems. We're very, very much aligned to designing with people and bringing people, removing the power between, that can sometimes happen between organisations or policymakers and people who are with lived experience of issues. So we're very much trying, it's everybody's equal, and people who are facing issues are in a perfect place to help to design the things that might help. They really know the problems. They really know that inside out. So. So we're very people focused, human-centered design and development. We're as inclusive as we can. That's one of our main things that we when we say inclusive, we talk about. We've done a fair bit on the content design of some of the things that we're working on, and just making sure that everybody is able to access the stuff that we're doing, and want to make a positive difference. Who doesn't? As a designer, I think we're responsible for the things that we bring into the world. So, and if it's not a positive one, then it's not that good. So, so yeah. So, and we just get stuck in and do stuff, which is good. So we work around Northumberland, and this is some of the images that we've that have come across where we've been. Some of the places we've been to. So. Hayden Bridge, Beadnell, Snod's Edge, which is an interesting little place. Nick was at the Still the other week having a meeting. Liz, who I mentioned earlier, she took all the photographs, so she's or most of them, I think Nick might have took the one at the Still, but mostly they're Liz's stuff. So I need to give her a shout out. And yeah, so, and some of the kind of things that we get involved in, so like energy generation and use, carbon reduction, housing, transport, mobility, tourism, off-grid communities. I kind of mentioned it when we first started. There's quite a few like properties in Northumberland that are off-grid, it's not connected to the power grid, and they're, you know, and it's not then they want to be, you know, there's the kind of the perception is that people just kind of live this idyllic life in a shepherd's hut and boil coffee on a little fire outside, and that's everything's rosy. But there's quite a few issues with people who aren't connected to the grid. So that's one of the projects that I'm working on. So yeah, isolation, connectivity, crime, and other stuff. So, but we're still discovering. So, like, if anybody like lives in a rural area and kind of like, you know, has any, you know, comes across any issues that after seeing this think that we could, you know, potentially help with, feel free to get in touch. So cool, right? So on with some stuff. This is hopefully they're going to be the interesting-ish bit. So like service design and also so service design kind of is a really, you know, it takes into account lots of things. There's, you know, the things that happen for the audience and things that happen in the background, and it's kind of linking all of those things together. So and we want, like, as a, you know, for us, we want to understand all of the pieces, and we want to include everyone. You know, it was mentioned earlier, the kind of divergent and convergent thinking. So kind of, you know, like thinking about, you know, loads of different ideas and then which ones potentially work, and kind of, you know, zooming out and zooming in of details, and focusing on people and capitalizing on everyone's strengths, because everybody has something, you know, everybody's completely, you know, like valued, valid in you know, and to be able to help to solve stuff. So I'm going to kind of run through a few of the project examples, and so this, and kind of you might perhaps recognize some of the service design methods, but yeah, it's kind of, because like the things that we do, like they're not like, I've not met anyone who's done this job before, and it's kind of, it's an interesting thing. So we're learning quite a lot as we go, and making stuff up, and kind of just getting, you know, just trying to you know, to make things happen and make things better. So so the first one is around connectivity, and so there's people, and it happens quite a lot, and it's not just in rural areas, but there's people that don't have a decent internet connection. So, but the thing we've been kind of concentrating on is in the rural areas where people haven't got, you know, so it was mentioned earlier about kind of, I think it was in the breakout room actually, about, you know, fibre to the property, where you kind of, you know, get really good, you know, internet to your property, and there's quite a lot of people that don't have decent internet, especially in rural areas. And something that was mentioned, you know, in between, just after the last talk, was around kind of the environment. And so for the sake of the environment, it takes a lot less power and a lot less carbon to have your internet going through fibre than it does through copper, and you know, and through, you know, it costs even more like carbon and environmental impact going through like 4G and 5G. So there's kind of there's and I put a link to the chat about a book around that kind of stuff by Jeremy McGovern, who's amazing, called World Wide Waste, which is good to look at. But so anyway, back to kind of connectivity stuff. So we started on our discovery with connectivity. So we'd heard that it was an issue, and we kind of wanted to get stuck in and see what we could do to help. So we kind of did some desk research initially, just found, you know, there's quite a lot of stuff, you know, in the news, and a lot of, you know, articles, and we put a call out for people who were struggling. And it sounds a bit mad, but we put a call out on, you know, it was in beginning of the year, no one was allowed out, so how do you go kind of knocking on doors, and, you know, we couldn't really get out, but we managed to get in touch with some people. We just kind of asked friends, you know, asked people, put a thing up on LinkedIn or whatever, and said, you know, if you know anybody who's facing this, then get in touch. So we created a discussion guide and did some interviews with people, and kind of just really found out, you know, it was a handful of people, and just, you know, got to the bottom of, you know, what their problems and the things that they were doing. And, you know, one of the people we spoke to, they kind of did a very, you know, bit of a diary study, or just like a photographic study, just like, you know, the things that they do, and, you know, the things that they're struggling with, which is kind of, you know, quite helpful to be able to see, you know, from an ethnographic perspective, like them in their environment trying to do the things that they were doing, especially at the middle of the pandemic, where you kind of can't go out. And we've created like a research wall. So everything, so we do a lot of stuff on Miro, like a virtual whiteboard. So everything we kind of had went on there. The board, I've not put the whole board on there, and you can't really see the detail, but just to give you an example of like just a load of different stuff. So we had a lot of research and the stuff that and the things that we've been talking to people about, and we kind of organized that into like the problems and the solutions and the use cases and the solution providers, the potential solution providers, which was kind of, you know, we took this as we took the view that there's probably going to be short-term, medium-term and long-term potential solution for some of these issues. Yes, it was kind of really good to kind of organize our stuff, organize the stuff that we'd learnt. So the interviews brought up some interesting stuff, and so, you know, the options weren't clear. There's lots of different kind of things that you can do. And I mean, before,
Good morning, all.
Sorry, hello.
Hi, sorry, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
No worries. 1 second. I'm just. Can you? Can you still see my screen and stuff?
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, thank you. Because I can't see Zoom because I'm sharing, so just because I've got them on full screen, so I can't see what's going on in the Zoom thing. So apologies for that. So we've found that some things weren't clear for people, like, you know, the different options, and sometimes it was the price thing, getting quoted like daft money to get a connection to their property, and it wasn't that far. And some had just arrived at a dead end. So it was kind of, you know, one of the things that my colleague did was to create this kind of just this graphic of like, you know, these are the things that you can, you know, these are the options, and we're still kind of prototyping that and kind of, you know, testing that out. And we worked with Northumberland a bit, and kind of, you know, we quite like this as a thing. So I mean, you can see it a little bit more clearly there. So just kind of making it clear, there's more roles to that, but you get the idea. And yeah, because. So then we ran some workshops with suppliers. So we got the suppliers in the room, and it was a bit of a risk because it could potentially have been a bun fight between a lot of different people who were competition, but it wasn't. It was grand. So we presented the use cases, so all the evidence that we'd had and all of the things, and we worked with the you know, the people that knew this stuff to try and help to find solutions for these particular cases. And the thought is we'll help to solve these particular cases, and then, you know, share that information and help other people to get connected and kind of get their situation sorted. So, and it's kind of paid off quite well. So it was worth the risk. So there's one property now connected to a better service, and others about to install like a wired link. That came about because, so they have a mobile mast in their land and didn't really think that they could potentially get connected to it. So that was only in the last month where I think Nick was able to go and see this person, and was just like, well, you could, you know, what about that? You could do that. So it was kind of, you know, in person's like really good. So I'm glad that we'll get back to that. And the rest, apart from one, are on the way to getting the service sorted. The one that isn't, they're in an area that is going out to now procurement around internet connectivity. So, you know, fingers crossed it's on the way. But then there's Elon Musk's Starlink service, which is potentially, I think someone else in Northumberland has got it, and so that's, you know, kind of, you know, that's a potential thing that could be a, you know, be something that helps them. Anyway, so yeah, so gathering all of the stuff, working with people that know this stuff, and helping to kind of solve, you know, to try and solve it, and we'll keep working on it, and keep sharing what we do. So after that, we kind of then one of the suppliers, one of the internet provider people, we started to work with them on their kind of service blueprint. So it's mentioned before, like the customer journey map, and so we've been working with them for a couple. I can't show you, there's not too much detail on this, but we've been kind of working on their customer journey for a particular audience type, and helping them, you know, so from the beginning, before they know about this organization and the project, and right the way to the end, and kind of, and how that links to their you know, their back end tools and all that kind of stuff. But interestingly, something that I've thought about a few weeks back, and I wanted to mention here, was around the environmental impact on stuff. And I don't know whether this has been done before and you know, hopefully if anyone knows of it. So you have this journey map, you have this, like, you know, these pain points and points across the journey where the people are happy or where they're not. And so I was wondering about a swim lane for environmental impact, and kind of like seeing that stuff. So, you know, what happens at that point, and you know, what is happening with this on the topic of sustainability, and can we potentially, you know, by visualizing like this, see where, you know, we could add stuff to the circular economy. Is there anything that's happening here? Is there any waste from there? Is there anything we can save there? So that's a kind of something that we've been kind of toying with internally, just, you know, adding a kind of swim lane to a journey map, to like, at what points can we help to reduce the impact? So not only make people happy, but have a better, might try and help on the sustainability front as well. So so yeah, that's a bit of an aside. But yeah, so three workshops in working with this organization. They've got, they're kind of designing more tactile interaction with the customers. Notice where people are kind of, not so happy, and tailoring kind of the landing pages, and, for this particular audience group, and, and having, just, referral strategies at the right time, and kind of, so they have seen everything kind of in a journey like that. It's really helpful to kind of see, to identify points where people are happy, where, when they're happy, they're most likely to refer, and when they're not as happy, then, how can we stop that? How can we resolve that? So, so the key takeaways around this, just kind of get out, talk to people, find the moments that matter, the good and the bad, include the front stage and the backstage in the process of the things that happen, like for the user, for the person, and the stuff that's happening in the background, because, and I think, one of the quotes that was mentioned earlier, just it was, it just, combine those two things, like the things that are possible, and the things that need to be done, and then that's a really good outcome. So yeah, and keep everyone kind of informed and engaged and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of another one of the takeaways. So the next thing I'll talk about is a bit more of a service design journey, I suppose, because the Rural Design Centre Innovation Project is a service, so we kind of need to make it a good one, or that's what we strive to do. So and so our main goal for this is to enable anyone who works with us to have a good experience and interact whenever they interact with us. So initially, the service has been going for a few months. We started in December, and it was a couple of months back. I was just like, right, we could do with, we could do with our service blueprint, and just like working on it. It's the blueprint thing isn't, for me, it's not like it's not a there you go. It's not an artifact that's done. It's like, it's a continual thing. So you keep working on it, and you keep adding to it and keep improving, because iteration is key for me. I think I really like digital because of that, because you can kind of keep making stuff better. So with this internal workshop, we started off with a bit of a warm-up, and it's quite good to do warm-ups because we do all this obviously online, the way that things are, and using Miro. And it's quite good to kind of, it's good to have a bit of a warm-up. And, although we did this with our team, but with the team at Advance, and although we're working on the same project, we don't work together all of the time. So there was people from Advance Northumberland, and there was people and there was us. So this kind of warm-up method was quite good to be able to, help people get used to the tools, because we use Miro all the time, but other people don't. And you can kind of help, see when people are struggling. So, and we don't ask to do, when we're doing a kind of interactive workshop like this, it's good to have a bit of a run through to make sure that everyone can use the stuff. Have some fun, because that's always important. I've just realised that I've got a capital T on my this and nothing else on those bullet points on my notes. Sorry, that's something that you can't see anyway, so forget about that bit. So yeah, and get to know each other a little bit more. So it's quite good to do that. Just any way that can kind of join the team is good. So each person had their own frame. So after the warm-up, everyone kind of got their own frame to map out the journey, what we saw as the journey so far. So what our clients or people that we're working with have experienced. And this is quite an interesting it was quite an interesting way to do it. So when I've done journey mapping in the past, it's kind of been a lot of people in a room, a lot of sticky notes on a big wall, and you can kind of, you can do it kind of a lot more collaboratively, I suppose. But this was because we were doing this digitally. I wanted to try this out, and so everyone kind of got their own frame and mapped out the journey that they saw. And 15 minutes later, so we did it in silence. So while it's in silence on Miro, there's a thing where you can just play some music. So there's kind of like a nice bit of tunes in the background, or just everyone kind of sat and did their thing. And 15 minutes later, they kind of mapped out their stuff. And I don't know if anyone, you probably have seen, there's a video or a TED Talk, I think it is, by Tom Wujek about how to make toast, about kind of mapping a process. And seeing, letting people do stuff in their own space, and so everybody sees things differently. So if you ask someone how to make toast, then if you watch the video, it's quite good. I'll not go into it too much, but so because everyone has a different perspective as to this journey. So So everybody had one of these frames and they put their own journey on, or the work that they saw, and then we came together and brought that into one journey map and worked out the points. And as you can see with the you can see like the emotions that we've only it's an iterative process. We've not finished this and we're still working on it, and we've been looking at the first bit. But it was interesting, we got all everybody's perception of the journey, put it all together, resolved any duplicates, and then we've it was a nice way to collaborate on it. But then we kind of honed in a bit on the registration bit because we're a project, and I'm not sure if many people possibly actually gone through the business support stuff. It's quite new to me, but people need to register for a project. And so in order to make that registration bit as nice as possible, we found that, we didn't want it to be cold, and we're about people. So, just to, send people to a link to say, do this, and then come back to us, it wasn't really fitting with us. So what we were able to do, what we found, like by honing in on this bit was, if we can, we were having initial conversations with people, and those initial conversations, we were, a lot of the stuff we were covering was asked in the registration form and the registration process. So we so then like Dennis, the business advisor, was like, okay, we'll gather all of this stuff. We'll do a lot of this stuff in the background for the person. And then when it comes to it, we just got a few more questions to ask, and then they're registered, and then it's done. And it's so we did that a couple of times, and we've had some really good feedback on that. So, but we know that isn't going to happen all of the time, because we are going to get people that find our service and need to do it, want to do it online or whatever, or don't get that initial phone call or don't have that initial bit of contact. So we want to make the online registration bit as good as we can as well. So we've started on, we've got this is launched now, the first iteration of it, the registration form, which is online. We had a fair bit of input to it. So my background is UX, so like digital user experience design. So I was able to feed into this quite a lot. And so we before the website was done, we created there was a paper form. We've made a Microsoft form prototype, so we took all the questions on the form. For me, with because business support isn't really my background, was able to look at the language and think, well, actually, that doesn't really make sense to me. How can we make that sound a little bit? How can we make that make more sense? But we got this in front of people. So we got the prototype in front of people who were wanting to register with the project, and we observed them going through it and asked them to adopt a think aloud approach. So we're going through the form, and we found out bits where bits of the language that wasn't making sense, and things that that could be made better, because we were using Microsoft Forms as the prototype. There was some of the interaction design stuff that we couldn't really change on some of it, but there's for me there's there's best practice of avoiding drop downs, and even if it's a lot of radio buttons, just give it a radio button, because people need to scan that list to be able to see that list. And so there's interesting to go through that process. And we wanted to break it up into one question at a time, so one question per screen, which makes it, saves cognitive load for people, makes it more helpful for people with dyslexia, and it's generally a better experience. The perception used to be that less clicks the better, but it's actually not. It's the easier it is for someone to complete a task, the better it is, and regardless of people click all of the time. It's not. We're not. Saving clicks isn't really a thing, I don't think. So we had all of the, when we were testing this with people and people were filling it in, we had all of the screens on a Miro board and we're adding comments to it, and so all of these comments went together to make this a little bit better. Update the language, and all of this stuff fed into the actual site, which is now live, but it's not, like I said, it's not as we'd like it to be just yet, because the questions aren't broken up as much as I suggested to the agency that were doing it. So they're on with that next. That's the next iteration. But we're going to keep learning off it and keep making. I watched someone completely the other day, and something he said was, I'm a sole trader, so I have no employees. And one of the questions is, how many employees are they in the business? And it's like, well, even though you're a sole trader, you're the employee. But so we need to make that clear. And there's always iteration that could be done to make it better around, and especially around the content design. Like content design is a it's a big thing, especially if you want to make sure that what you're putting out there is makes sense to everybody. So the key takeaways: collaboration is key. Make workshops fun. Zoom into the important parts. Test, don't guess. I've done some posters around that, which at some point I might try to understand around, and content design is quite a major element. So I'll kind of move on to the last one, and you'd be quite pleased, I'm sure. So this project was a smart energy in village halls, and it was a really interesting one. This is one of the first things that we worked on together as a team. Not so much of a service design project, but more about core design methods, but you might find something useful in it. So there were several village halls in Northumberland that wanted to kind of move towards a greener energy, and they'd done different stuff. Some had insulation, some were, some hadn't, and some, they found out some stuff and some hadn't. So we kind of, there was a few things holding them back. So, again, speaking to people, speaking to them, what is it that's stopping you? One of the things that the funding only covered large projects. Village halls were at a different stage, and people, and some of the hall people didn't really know what methods would be most beneficial. So again, we kind of mapped out, the village halls, and there's a bit more to this. There's a few others on our initial kind of Miro board, but we mapped out and added some of the things that we knew. And create this research wall. Then this is a kind of tactic or a technique that I found from a book by David Travis and Philip Hodgson, a book called Think Like a UX Researcher. So it's kind of, you have all of these questions at the beginning of something, all of these things that you want to know. And if you kind of keep a record of all of those questions and just on a sticky and just add them to where you could potentially find out the answers to them, and then try and find out the answers to them, and it's kind of just a really good way of, because everything's, with design, there's a lot of questions. So it's a good way of kind of keeping track of, all of the stuff that you want to know and how you can find it out. So we kind of then there was a core design event that we put together with the village hall people, with Community Action Northumberland, some guest speakers for inspiration, some really good people that kind of came along, an energy funding expert, and the National Innovation Centre for Rural Enterprise. So we work quite closely with them. They're part of Newcastle University. And the core design event and the workshop. This was January. We're in lockdown, and I think it was like the end of December, or middle of towards the end of December. We didn't really have any people signed up for it, but then by I think middle of January, like Liz I work with, she'd kind of really got on it and got 13 village halls signed up and kind of interested in doing this. So we did it on Zoom and did this event. So there was kind of we were quite detailed in the way that we planned it, and it went over a little bit the timing, but it kind of does. But we used a technique called Troika Consulting, which is there's a website called Liberating Structures, which is all around kind of workshop ideas, things to make sure that everybody's included in the workshop. And look at that little bit of fancy animation. I just learned that this morning. So before the workshop, we each person was to think of a challenge that they have and what help they would need. So we had people from village halls, but we had other people, like say the funding people, and we kind of broke out into really small groups, like groups of 3 or 4, I think it was. And the way that Troika Consulting works is everybody is, one person spends a couple of minutes saying what their challenge is, and the rest of the people try and help to solve that, for a couple of minutes. And then you swap around, and it just means that everybody gets to speak and everybody gets to voice, their potential ways that those problems could be solved. And it's a really good way of kind of, co-design, and collaboration. So it kind of worked quite well, and that's so during the workshop, kind of made sure this, what is your challenge, what do you need help with, and we kind of and made sure people knew the workshop steps. It didn't, because it was online and wasn't kind of in breakout spaces where we could like jot round. We tried to have somebody from Rural Design Centre or from the team in each of the breakout rooms. To help manage that, but I mean, still time and still went over and stuff. But it was really good anyway to kind of get everybody engaged. So the event went really well. Participants were engaged on an equal level. Everyone felt progress was made. 13 village halls signed up to work together and a combined bid went in for the funding. We found out, I think we can go live with that now, that funding has been approved. So there's these village halls, they're getting, there's going to be there's a chunk of money going to be able to be spent on the feasibility study to see what, how they move forward. And then after that, we had a retro. So this is an internal thing. So we kind of just worked out what was, just an hour. Usually we kind of bring biscuits and stuff, but we didn't do that obviously because we were doing it remotely. But all of us, just like a couple of minutes each, 5 minutes each on each segment. What worked, what didn't, what should we start doing, what should we stop doing, and next steps. And that's really helpful for the next time we do something. You kind of, everything's a learning curve. You just keep learning and keep making stuff better. So the key takeaways from the smart energy and village hall stuff was, work out what you don't know, and then find out how to find it out. I probably won't be able to say that after a couple of years, but co-design works, but everyone needs to feel equal. So kind of remove any power struggles that might be there. Plan some more and ensure that everyone can participate, and keep learning, keep adjusting, and keep improving. So I hope that was useful. But I'd be very welcoming for some feedback if anybody has any. And if anyone wants to get in touch, there's our email address. And I think Terry said you put people's email addresses out afterwards. So, but yeah, welcome any questions or anything. So,
thanks for that, Jamie. If you could turn off the screen share so we could
just do that.
all show our appreciation in what is now the usual manner. I mean, that's just so much stuff you've shared there. It's incredible.
No, I wasn't sure if it was too much. Liz said this morning, there's loads there, mate. I'm just like, I'm going to try and talk quickly. So hopefully.
Well, you know what? If we missed anything, we can always watch it on YouTube next week or over the weekend with a. So I'm now delighted to welcome Helena Hill, a service designer extraordinaire, who is going to tell us another angle to the wonderful thing that is service design. So Helena, can I hand over to you?
Thanks very much, Terry. I'm just going to share my screen here first of all before I get started. Hopefully
Yeah, we can see that. Okay.
Can you see it okay?
We can, yeah, that's fine.
Good, thank you. First of all, I'd like to, this is a very personal presentation for me this morning. So please bear with me. Most of you, I know I've gone through the delegate list, and I can see who's on the call today, and I've met so many of you before. And those people who have been to one of my talks before will probably know that it doesn't take too much to get me talking about UX, experience design, service design. It's what I do, it's what I love. But this morning, and I'd like to thank Terry for allowing me to do this. I would just like to take a few minutes before I get started, if that's okay. As Terry mentioned at the beginning of today's session, the past year has been extremely challenging for many of us, and he actually used the term tragic. And I would like to just talk on that note for a moment, and I would like you to bear with me while I talk about this. So this morning's presentation, and I'm just going to move forward a little bit here, is dedicated to Nate Sterling. Nate tragically passed away at the end of March this year. And his passing has left all of us who knew him with a sense of shock and a huge loss. And I would like to thank those of you who are joining us this morning who knew him, who studied with him, who worked with him, and of course enjoyed a pint and a bike ride with him. At only 27 years of age, Nate had already achieved so much. A master's degree in multidisciplinary innovation from Northumbria University, working with Creative Fuse as a research assistant and champion for innovation. And over the last 3 years as an extremely successful design strategist at Grid Smarter Cities. And I'd like to thank the Grid team for their moral support and joining us this morning. He also had recently set up his own design thinking company, Chimera, and also won the Dynamo Rising Star Award in 2019. Wherever you came across Nate, his energy was infectious. I hope you can see that on the photograph on the right. His love for design was contagious, and his kindness overflowing. Nate was my friend, colleague, and mentee. He was my partner in experience design, and I miss him dearly. And I'd like, please, for all of you here today, to take 30 seconds, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment so I can see everybody, to give Nate a huge round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. And as I said beforehand, those of you who know me will know that that's been a very difficult one, certainly for me to come to terms with over the past few weeks. And once again, I'd like to thank Terry. Terry, I know that you wanted to say something as well at this point.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Helena. I mean, I didn't know Nate, but I could tell by the number of tributes that I saw on LinkedIn and Twitter that he was very well loved by a lot of people. And I'm sure everyone that knew him and worked with him would have been very proud to have heard those words you've just said. I would like to echo that. I have the, and I will use the word pleasure and joy of being a volunteer for the Samaritans. So I get to talk to people like Nate who are going through things. And all I would say to people, and especially the blokes, talk to each other and ask each other how they're doing. If you're struggling, somebody else is struggling, so talk about it. And that is very, very often the answer. And yeah, but again, Helena, thank you for that.
Thank you, and please, sorry about that. It was very difficult to do, but it was something that I felt very necessary. So moving on, and you will hear from Mark actually from Grid this morning, who is going to just talk you very briefly through some of the work. This is actually Nate and I working together at Grid a couple of years ago, and we were kind of setting off the service design process there. And we will be, he will be coming and talking to you a little bit about how that's actually still being used at Grid to help inform product development, and I'm extremely proud to have been a part of that. I also would like to take this opportunity on a slightly happier note to do a little bit of an introduction, but also to welcome. I've noticed on the call today, on the session today, are a couple of my UX students, Polly and Liz, and I'd very much like to welcome them. And also my daughter Leanna, who, if you notice the surname, I know there's quite it's not particularly rare, but Leanna is on the call today, and I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate her on getting an internship with Hedgehog Lab in Newcastle as a user researcher. So please do feel free to link with her as well. I'm extremely proud of what she's achieved. Right, moving on, a little bit of an introduction to me then, and as I say, I know many of you on the call. I am an experienced strategist, consultant and mentor. I don't usually work in blue rooms, but anyway, this is a picture of what I'm doing. And Luke, I worked with Tracer, I've been working for a while actually with Tracer Co. Luke's on the call today. And this is actually us going through a service design sort of process and trying to sort of do that vertical part of it, which I'll come to in a moment. I do a lot of speaking around experience design. I do prefer to speak it to a room full of actual people, but you know, in the last year, we've managed to achieve quite a lot, and I've still been able to kind of spread the word and educate wherever possible. When I'm not doing that, I do have rather 2 or 3 rather odd but very enjoyable hobbies, and that is building Lego. You can't actually see it because I've moved my desk, but I do have rather a huge Lego architecture collection. And I have these three that I hope will not make themselves too vocal this morning while they're on the call. And I'm a big fan of Formula One and particularly Red Bull. So you'll find me on a Sunday afternoon with my dogs under my feet, building Lego architecture and watching a Formula One race. So that's generally what I do when I'm not experienced designing. But what I'm here today to talk to you is about service design. It's about looking beneath the surface. And I want to just sort of introduce you to what actually service design is, and how you, either in your part, whatever sort of you know that you do in your organisation, or whether you're a service designer and you might be able to learn something from this. But it's just how you can actually start to think about bringing a service design process or structure into your organisation. And you'll see along the top here that I've just sort of outlined the the customer journey, and that's kind of what takes place above the surface. And I'll come to why I'm using sort of the iceberg analogy in a moment. And the customer journey generally is, generally what we see as customers when we're going off to buy something. We start with what we would call an awareness of wanting to work with a particular company or a brand, or wanting to buy a product. We then move through as consumers what we would call a consideration and an evaluation stage. That's generally when we're looking to 3 to 5 and then maybe a couple of companies that can help us achieve what we want to achieve, whether that be in a B2C or a B2B environment. We then usually go through some kind of transaction, whatever that might be. I do understand that for many organisations, a transaction isn't always monetary. It might mean signing up for something, or creating an account, or creating, maybe reading some content, for example. And then we go through the engagement process. So what happens? How does an organisation keep engaged with a consumer after that? And then through to the advocacy stage, because that's what we want. We want our consumers, whether they are, whether it's a monetary transaction or not, or to have enjoyed the experience with us, because that's so important. Because the more we have, more of our consumers that become advocates for our brand, the more we can then sort of create that circular sort of economy, in where we are creating advocates. They're going off and saying, yes, we enjoyed working with that organisation, or we enjoyed our experience with them, and we're going to go off and tell our friends about it. So that's, we see that as consumers above the surface. What we don't often see, however, is the services that actually go to power that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look underneath the surface and understand what needs to happen to enable an experience which doesn't just meet but exceeds user expectations. So I'm just going to reduce me to there. So why customer journey maps? So I'm keeping above the surface at this point. So they are a visual representation of the interaction between a customer and a business, and essentially they tell a story. Both Jamie and David have alluded to that this morning in various ways. They detail how a brand or an organisation engages a potential customer and moves through the entire sales process. So it's not just about the user experience of a digital asset, for example, it's about what happens before that and what happens after that. So customer experience is a wider remit, if you like. Benchmark current customer relations, and also helping to ensure that they stick around. Retained customers, as we know, are an awful lot cheaper than, it's cheaper to retain a customer than it is to actually onboard a customer. So the more of them that we can keep around, the better. And it also enables us to map and consider each and every interaction in turn to ensure that those expectations are met, if not exceeded. So, 34% on average of all companies, and this is cross-sector, engage in a process. Popular companies you'll have heard of, such as Starbucks and Uber, they depend on customer journey maps, not only just to show the customer experience from that awareness point to that advocacy point, but they use it as a tool, and they use it as an internal communication tool to convey the importance of the customer's experience at all levels of the journey, and they use it to ensure that each of the interactions, from deciding you want a cup of coffee to then sitting down and using your laptop and then coming out and reflecting on that experience, it ensures consistency in that brand. So if I go to a Starbucks cafe in Tokyo, which I have done, or London or Newcastle or wherever it might be, what they've done is they've used service design to ensure a consistent experience across all their cafes, wherever you are in the world. Now, I wanted to show you a couple more examples of customer experience maps. If I asked my husband to draw a customer experience map of Ikea, I think this would probably be it. Let's go in, get what we need, and then turn around and come out again, or we're just going to get lost and be there forever. I don't know what it is, but it can't stand Ikea. But Ikea actually, or I should say somebody online put together this, which is a customer journey map for Ikea. And again, I noticed that Jamie showed one of these. It's almost like this emotional type-driven customer journey. So from a horrible experience, I'm amazed there isn't anything down there actually, to very gratifying. And you'll see here the customer journey tends to move around as people move through, right from the, knowing or working out where their local store is and the appearance of it, right through to that bit that, let's face it, we all love the best, which is getting our hot dog and our Diet Coke right at the very end. You'll see that on this sort of emotional journey map here, there are different colours used, different shapes used to represent different stages of the process, for example. So it might be where there's a direct interaction, or how people are feeling, or what actually involves the person or the user actually doing something. So you can basically start, even if you start on a very simple level, mapping a customer journey and using emotions to start off with is a really easy way of getting in. And talking of Starbucks, this is another, and it's basically creating a baseline, and we can talk about poached and enriched experiences. Now, I do understand to get this kind of data, you do need to go out there and ask users and customers what they think of this, but having this enhanced and enriched experience along with the baseline is a really great idea for just getting a quick visual on how your current customers or a segment of customers experiences your brand. And you can see right from here, they're using from anticipating, being in an office or a car and thinking I need a cup of coffee, right through to entering, including things like, for example, the aroma being nice. We all know when we walk into a Starbucks, it's always got that nice smell about it, that nice kind of ambiance. Engaging, what happens while they're actually, going through the ordering process, sitting down and actually drinking the coffee, to exiting and reflecting. Now, I just want to make it clear at this point that if you want to concentrate on a particular part of a customer journey, that's absolutely fine too. It doesn't always have to be from awareness to advocacy. It could be on a part of the customer journey that, after collecting some data, your organisation feels that is particularly suboptimal at the moment. So, and this is actually a KLM. I've put the links on here, and I was going to say to Terry afterwards, I'm very happy to share these slides to anybody who wants them. So if you do want to come back and have a look at some of these, you can do. But this is from a site called Mind the Product, and this is basically from going to the airport, going through a sort of a boarding, before customs, behind customs, and actually tracking what happens at each of those points. And sort of, it's a reminder as well to colleagues of what that general sort of customer experience looks like and where it can be improved at each of those points. So we've got here our customer journey, as I mentioned before, what we generally see happening above the surface, the tip of the iceberg, if you like. And I'm just going to we're going to go in beneath the surface here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to actually show you it's a 3-minute video. I always think, well, is there a way that I can explain something better? And I use this video quite regularly in my training, so apologies to those of you my students who are on here who have seen this before. But I use this and I think, well, why do I need to add to this? I think this short video actually really explains service design brilliantly.
What is service design? I've been thinking about this for a while, and I recently discovered a brilliant quote by Mark Futine that I think sums it up perfectly. When you have 2 coffee shops right next to each other, each selling the exact same coffee for the exact same price, service design is the reason you go into one coffee shop and not the other. So let's play that out in a little scenario. Coffee shop A decide they want a mobile app. So they put a team full of people together to work on it for a couple of months before delivering it to their customers. The customers download the app only to find it's got nothing that they need. Now let's look at Coffee Shop B. Coffee Shop B put the customer at the heart of the experience. They talk to them. They do some immersive research and really get to know what the customer's doing before, during, and after their coffee. They can map this out on a customer journey where they identify the highs and lows of the experience and uncover some service opportunities and can start to explore solutions. The team then start to speak to other people from around the business. They speak to the colleagues in store and understand what their day looks like. They speak to the founder to look back at the original vision for the coffee shop, as well as the marketing team and the suppliers too. Once they have all of these people together, they can run a workshop or a series of workshops where they can identify the real business objective and exactly what they want to achieve. They can start to design some concepts and test them with the customers they now have a relationship with. They can do a tech analysis and plot everything on a blueprint that documents all of the support systems necessary to bring these concepts to life. With all this, they can create their North Star vision, all resulting in a mobile app full of features that customers love. But it doesn't stop there. They've also identified that colleagues need a tablet application to help them deal with the extra flow of traffic in store, and the payment system needs updating so all three can work in harmony. They might design a colleague training and engagement program and redesign the store to optimize the physical experience too, whilst also looking at how they talk about themselves socially, possibly even introducing some new product lines. These are what we call the front stage experiences. But in order for it to all come together, we must look at the backstage too. Here you will find the back-end systems that drive all the digital propositions, key metrics that we measure ourselves by, learn from, and iterate upon the services, as well as a CRM system and some delivery partners. So, service design is about three things. 1, customer-centric. It's about putting the customer at the heart of everything you do, and only then will you create services people love. 2, co-creation. It's about exploring and designing these concepts together, and as a result, you will ensure services are both technically feasible and business viable. 3, holistic. It's about building interdependent, interrelated experiences that all connect with people on an emotional level. That way, you will create services that scale beyond the original idea. To round it all off, let's revisit Mark's quote. Service design is not just what makes you walk into one coffee shop and not the other. It's the reason you keep coming back and tell all your friends about it.
Okay. Yeah, I love that video. It explains service design so well, and I just want to take a couple of takeaways from that, actually, from that particular video. Discovery. Understanding that first coffee shop, taking the time to discover. I can't reiterate this enough when I'm working with clients. Taking a discovery time, using it to research, finding out actually who customers are. It still staggers me that there are still many organizations of all shapes and sizes who don't take time to do that discovery. Understanding what their frustrations are, what their pains are. And then by doing that, not only does it mean that an organization can reduce development time, reduce delivery time, it also leads to, I think it's a much more collaborative approach to design. It addresses those suboptimal experiences. And importantly, it helps to keep clients and customers coming back. And that is so important. The other thing that I want to say about this in general is that as designers, we are often afraid to talk about the M word. And by the M word, I mean money. And why do we want to create an environment where we have retained customers? Because it helps increase our revenue. So although we talk a lot as service designers, UX designers, customer experience designers about creating those human user-centered approaches, it's important for us as organizations too to stay in business. So, don't be afraid to talk about why it is that you want to create human and user-centered experiences. Now, I just want to introduce you to service design blueprints, because actually everybody on this call today could very well put one of these together. And I'll give you some of the main elements of what a service design blueprint is. And also I'm providing you with a link to where you can get one. So service design blueprints, I guess they are what they kind of said in the tin. They're a little bit like an architectural blueprint in a way. They're a great place to check whether key processes are sufficiently human-centered. They are, for example, when a service or product feature or a function improvement is needed to improve the customer experience. The great tool for that. And importantly, they're a visual tool as well, which can be shared between departments. And so what are the main elements? What would you generally expect to see on a service design blueprint? Well, we've talked about that customer journey. So that's what happens above the surface. We then are going to see something called evidence. And this is a bit of a difficult one to get your head around sometimes, but the evidence is what the thing is, what that kind of tangible thing is. And that tangible thing could be a website, it could be a digital asset that is required in order for that interaction to happen. A timeline. Some customer experiences will happen over a matter of minutes. For others, particularly in large organisations, will take months to be able to bring a customer right from that awareness point through that transactional, the engagement, and then to the advocacy. So timeline, but that could be, as I say, could vary widely depending on your organisation. We have what are called front stage actions, and I'll show you some examples of this in a moment. Backstage, line of visibility. Lines of interaction, we have an internal and above the surface. And then, of course, importantly, the vertical part of that service design blueprint is what happens underneath the surface. So what are the processes and technology required underneath that the user or the customer doesn't see, but has a direct effect on the experience they will have with your organisation? So there are two aspects to service design blueprints. They are both linear, in terms of they are moving forward, but also vertical as well. And I shall show you some of these. So this example here is from the Nielsen Norman Group. Again, you can find this very easily if you just even Google Service Blueprint Nielsen Norman or nngroup.com, which you can see down here. And you'll notice that there are two elements to this. We've got the linear, the horizontal element, and then we have that of the vertical. You'll notice on here, like I mentioned beforehand, there's a timeline along the top. This actually is for a customer using both physical, so a retail location, and a website for purchasing a white good. I'm not going to spend loads of time on what it's about, but I just want to show you what the elements are. So we've got our timeline, we've got our evidence. So this is what I was talking about previously. It's kind of what is being interacted with on the customer journey. So it could even be somebody looking at something like signage or appliance signage. You might see, an energy rating, for example. Even noting an employee's name tag when you go into a physical location is evidence. It's what the user, the customer, is interacting with. You'll see then we have the customer journey, and then we have what's called our first line of interaction. And again, I know I haven't got too much more time this morning, but I just want to mention that is where an interaction between the customer and the organisation, the business, takes place. You'll see also there's a line of visibility here, and it's anything below this is what is important to enable this to happen. So it could be, for example, an inventory management system, a CRM system, a point of sale system. If those things don't, or those aspects don't perform correctly or don't perform well, it will have a direct impact on what happens here. So it's very, very important that you take an opportunity just to look at what you have or what you have running beneath the surface in order to make that happen. Again, I'll just quickly whiz through these, but you'll see the same kind of elements on here: the timeline, the evidence, the customer actions, and then again, you'll see there's the line of interaction. So what's happening that the customer can see interacting with the business, and then we head at this point below the surface. I have worked with small organisations as well on service design, and they're kind of their first question is, well, Helena, we don't have any internal processes, we're not big enough. And I always find that quite an interesting one, because I kind of will say, well, do you have a website? Yes. Do you use email marketing? Well, yes. Well, they are internal processes, and they have to be working properly to enable that to happen. You also, if you're feeling fairly creative, you might find that you prefer to do your service blueprint with a set of drawings, or user stories, as we might call them, illustrating how the user moves through, or the customer moves through an experience. So just very quickly, how does it drive change? It keeps the company moving forward. All right, it keeps our vision, our North Star vision in front of us all the time, keeping the user and the customer at the very heart. They're actionable, and I think that's very important to remember, is that you take each point in turn, each interaction in turn, and deal with that one at a time, and pretend, wherever possible, on a cross-departmental basis. They are flexible to a certain extent, in that, yeah, we realise as designers that things do change, and as we go and we validate more data, we realise that that things aren't quite as we thought. And I know that that's something that Jamie and David touched on before, is the importance of data and validating any assumptions that you might have. And it also acts as a stepping stone towards that strategic goal or vision. At this point, actually, I'd just like to briefly hand over to Mark before I conclude, who's going to talk just briefly about how they use, Grid still uses the service design process that Nate and I worked on a couple of years ago to inform product development. Over to you, Mark.
Cool, thank you, Helena. I just loved how my colleagues just absolutely disappeared to the sides. You know, they're here still. They're here still. I might change the. Yeah, it might change their camera just to kind of name check them. So yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, Helena. Do you want to move across to the slide for our product development process?
Yeah, I will. Yes, there you go.
There we go. This really kind of underpins everything. So how CX now, Helena and Nate, kind of had an impact on our business, and we came up with this maybe not too long into the start of Nate and my time at Grid, back many moons ago, in about July 2018. And one thing I think we've heard a few times already this morning is around double diamond and how to kind of explore stuff. We absolutely start with service design for the real kind of key reason, and I use post-it notes a lot, is for the why. I don't think you can see that. We have to have a why. If we don't have a why, we don't understand what the value is. If we don't have the value, you don't get to that awkward M word, Helena, that you mentioned before. So that was kind of really front and center for us. And that was one of the big things that we took away from those CX sessions that you had. How do we get to that? So a lot of the mechanisms that Nate brought to us was around exploration. So one particular project that I'll talk to is, we've got two main products, both pinning around how to repurpose curbside. One's for construction logistics and trying to better coordinate and last mile coordination for deliveries to sites to improve efficiency and do some other things as well. We had a period back in 2019 where we put this process to the test, and it was great. We had stakeholder engagement that was structured around CX. We were able to pull out key processes that could test the hypothesis that we brought into that stakeholder engagement. And that's great because it allows us to focus on something that will utilize our hypothesis, our product, and ultimately validate it. We had centers of inquiry as well, just to try and understand from these stakeholders, these users, what's really important to them. So we have three key principles as well, which I believe were, and may ask for a little help from my stagehand to my left. Efficiency, coordination, and compliance. Oh, I get a thumbs up. There you go. Pass. They're really key to us. So that centre of inquiry, we knew that these three themes that were across three distinct stakeholder groups resonated. So we had all this why that we could then take. I say we, I'm going to be really mean now. This one here, Isabel Johnson, amazing product owner, could take and define the what. So that really helped us. We knew what the product needed to do based off the why. And then, even more mean, Dan Pudwell and his technology team, our dev team, could then build out, how it needs to do that. But it all starts with the why. And the why for us in design is a golden thread in our business. The research part, the understanding, it's great that we had time and space to do it in that Innovate UK project for construction, but it continues. It doesn't have to be a brand new product. It can be an iteration on that product, and we'll do that. In fact, we're doing it on Monday by going down to the London Borough of Southwark to talk to people, real users, shop owners, and how this curbside tool that we're developing is going to impact them and how they're going to interact with it. So we're going to get more understanding of the users, of the stakeholders, of all the interactions to best inform what we do. Because personally, from my point, as being responsible for product, I can set out an amazing backlog of stuff that produces an app that looks great and looks shiny and sexy and all those things. But if it doesn't have adoption, it's dead in the water. So that why, for me, it's a huge precursor to driving adoption, which gets value and hopefully it allows you to kind of charge and get money for it and profit, revenue and all that other nice stuff. So it really is right at the front, all the way through intelligence for us, service design, and it goes past the products. We're finally getting around to also for the CX work that we did back with Helena again many moons ago into our comms now. So our website is going to start to kind of catch up with our kind of product intelligence and adoption of service design. So you'll be glad to know, Helen, that we're finally getting around to realising some more value for those sessions that we have with you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to conclude now. We've talked about some of the benefits. I think Mark's just talked you through most of them. I hope you sort of took some of those, but great benchmark, a great opportunity to examine your tools, your processes, your people, and your technology, identifying any weaker as well as strong areas in the journey, clarifying lines of interaction, and reinforcing that customer-oriented focus. So very important. You can, I don't want to call it pick and mix, maybe that's not quite the right word, but you'll often see, and I know that Jamie, actually, one of the ones that he showed quite a lot on there. There was also the emotions of the customer as well as you go through various parts of the process. We can actually turn those into emotions into what we call a dramatic arc, which does give us a very quick visual key as to how customers feel as they're going through different starts of the process. But these are some of the tools, and as I said beforehand, I'm quite happy to share these slides afterwards. If you'd like to get a hold of a service design blueprint, this site here, servicedesignTools.org, is a great resource, and if this is actually downloadable if you would like to just get started by putting something together, and it has those main elements of a service design blueprint that I was talking through earlier on. Also, another great place to look as well is the government website and what they mean by service design. And I think this is perfect, end to end, front to back, and throughout every channel. So another resource there if you would like to look at that. And then I have the copy of this book. I think it's been pinched by one of the daughters, actually. But service design. Oh, there you go. Leanna's got it upstairs. The Service Design Doing book. Also, this is servicedesigndoing.com. Not only can you get the book, but you can also go onto the website, and they have an absolute ton of free resources around actually doing service design. So not only thinking about it, but putting it into practice. Finally today, and thanks again, Terry, for allowing me to do this, I am running through RTC, a boot camp, a customer experience boot camp, and we will be doing some service design work during that. It's going to be 4 sessions over the first 2 weeks in July of this year. So these are free to register if you are based in the North East LEP, and you, of course, fall into the rules and regulations around who's allowed to attend these things. But they are for SMEs based in the North East LEP. So I would suggest getting in touch with either myself or John Heslop at RTC, who will be able to let you know. But this is going to be a really hands-on 4 times 2.5 hours in 2 weeks boot camp. And again, the event link is there, but again, RTC website events, and you shall find it under there. It is being shared. So it's going to be a really, really great one, and I'll give you some amazing tools. So once again, I'd like to thank you very much for bearing with me at the beginning of this talk today. And also for Mark and the GRID team for coming along and talking briefly about the work that Nate did at GRID and is still being used, which is the most I can ask for. So thank you very much once again for all your time, and I hope that's been useful.
Thanks, Helena. If we could all show our appreciation of that masterclass in service design. I would love to open up for questions, but we're just running a little bit short of time, but I'm sure Helena will be happy to answer any questions or respond to anything over email. I'll share her email address. I'll also share a link to that, those workshops that we're coming up. And Helena and the other two speakers, if there's anything else you'd like me to share, any resources and things that you might have mentioned, then let me know and I can send them out. But thank you for that.
That's pleasure.
So we're all now fully equipped. So now the job, I guess, is for us all to apply service design to everything that we do. Because you might not think it, but it is relevant to everything. So I really encourage you to do that. And I'm expecting to see some fantastic results for the next few weeks. So a huge thank you to David and Jamie and Helena for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. Just to conclude, we've got a couple of people who now just want to do a quick 2-minute pitch, and I will have to insist that it's 2 minutes because it's getting close to lunchtime and we all know how important that is. So Justin, where's Justin? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm here, Terry. Okay, so I'm Justin Souter. I work for the Northeast Local Enterprise Partnership. We are seeking people who would like to take part in peer networks. So peer networks are a group of business leaders, business owners who work together confidentially over probably a 6-week period to solve business problems together, address issues like pandemic resilience and recovery. And it's often the case that founders and business leaders don't really have someone to talk to unless they have a business mentor, for example, or maybe they have a board. So I facilitated one of these earlier in the year, and it was an amazing privilege to facilitate these business owners supporting one another in and also making progress by doing that. So I'm going to post my contact details in the chat. So the idea about peer networks is they are collaborative peer support networks, and they're going to run probably over the summer, one in the summer and one in the autumn. And love to hear from people, and thanks for everybody else who's got in touch already. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. And we'll send out your contact details also to everyone afterwards.
That's fantastic.
Simon, did you want to do a short pitch?
Yeah, really short though. Yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, you spotlighted me. Excellent, thanks. I just wanted to bang on about how good I am at doing R&D tax credits. If anyone's engaging in any of this service design stuff and you start to innovate something that involves some scientific or technological element, then if you're frustrated with R&D tax credits as a process, give me a call and we'll get it sorted. But yeah, that's it from me. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Simon. And Simon really does love R&D tax credits. So if you want to meet someone who's excited about such things, then he's your man. Arjun, are you still with us? Did you want to do a pitch? If you could give me a wave, and I'll highlight you, or you can just speak from where you are. There we go. Okay, over to you.
Hello.
Yes, so you wanted to do a 2-minute pitch, Arjun, is that right? To introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Arjun, and I'm from India, and I'm an international student studying in Teesside University doing my ME design. So I'm a UX UI designer and a visual designer.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for introducing yourself. And if anyone's interested in maybe chatting with you, again, as I say, I'll share your contact details. We had a few other people who, but I think Peter from SMS. I don't think Peter's here. Is that right? Give me a quick wave, Peter, if you are. You're not. Right, fine. So I'm very quickly now, I'm just going to spotlight myself. How do I do that? There we go. And I'll just do that magic thing with the slides again. There we are. So as I said at the beginning, that's why we do what we do. And hopefully some of this service design stuff has become a bit more of a reality for you today, and will no doubt become even more of a reality over the next few weeks, months and years. But that's what we're about. My role as being involved in Design Network North is because you are Design Network North. It's not me, it's not whoever in the team, it's you, whether you want to be or not. But my role is to support that network, encourage collaboration, and that's where the real value is, people sharing ideas and projects and whatever. It's about giving assistance to companies as well, so if you want some help with anything, do let me know, do shout. I love it when I get an email saying I could do with some help with something, so don't hesitate. It's about sharing knowledge through events like this, and if you've got some really good knowledge you'd like to share, then let me know, and we could maybe build an event around it. And it's about helping to raise the profile of the importance of design, but helping you raise your profile as well, and raising the profile of the north of England as being an amazing place that we all know, but the world needs to know about it. One of the ways we do that is through these Rise in Design events, so that's where you've been for the last couple of hours if you weren't sure. The next one in June is going to be on designing for net zero, which is all about, obviously carbon reduction, emissions reduction, impact reduction, all that kind of stuff. We've got a few people lined up, but if that's something you'd like to share something on, then let me know, and we can see about including you on that. We might also be actually in Proto for that event. They haven't confirmed yet whether it's open. I think they're still thinking about it. But we will maintain this online element as well, so we'll have a kind of a hybrid event. So if we are able to, we'll probably have two tickets, so you can either book to come in live or book to come in virtually. 9th of July, we haven't decided yet, so it's kind of over to you. These events are for you. So if you've got a topic that you think we should cover, do let me know, and we can pull that together. So, and as it says there, get involved. This is your network, this is your community. So, the more you get out, the more you put in, the more you get out. There's a lot of information on the website there about how you can do that. So all the events and things are on there. There's a news page. So if you've got a story you want to share, a success story, then let me know. We can include that on there. So designnetworknorth.org is where that's all happening. Now, our sponsor today has been the Supply Chain Northeast program, which is the program that's under which Helena is delivering her workshop in July. That was set up and is funded to support businesses in terms of diversifying, getting into new markets, exploring the markets that they're currently in. There's a lot of help and support through that program. I'll send out a bit more information on that so you can see exactly what is on offer. They've got a few things coming, and also the other program that's delivering this is the Edge program from Innovate UK. So that gives support to any business who's basically doing something new, whether that's innovating a new product, developing some new internal processes and services, and you can get some really good in-depth support from a team of around 28 innovation specialists across the north. So again, I'll send out some information on that, and if that's of interest, then I would encourage you to get involved. There's a couple of things coming up that I'm going to mention. So the KTN have had this series of events. I think the third one is the next one, next Wednesday. They're really good. They're a little bit like this format, not as good, obviously, but they do a pretty good job. So there's a couple of really good speakers, 2 or 3 speakers they usually have, and then there's time for networking, a bit like we do here. They are great. I've been to the last 2. I'm going to be going to the one on Wednesday. So again, I'll send out information on that on Monday so you can get signed up. I'd really encourage you to do that. There's also, from the KTN, they're launching fairly soon the Creative Industries Fund. So that's specifically for small businesses in the creative sector, and it's support, but also funding for projects up to £250,000 for innovation projects, for doing some new stuff essentially. So I think that opens next week. There was a briefing session this morning, but obviously I didn't tell anyone about it for obvious reasons. But it does go live next week on Monday. And as with everything, I'll send out more information on that. And then they also have the Robots and Artificial Intelligence Industry Showcases happening later this month. They've been running for quite a few years and they're really good. So if you're interested in that, it's free to attend. Everyone who's anyone in the world of robotics and artificial intelligence will be there. So I'd really encourage you to get along to that. What else have we got? Oh, and then Herman Miller, who I know many of you will have heard Mark Catchlove speaking. So they do some fantastic work into the workplace and collaboration and innovation in the workplace, and how does that happen. So they've got a series of seminars coming up because everything's changed and it's not going back. And so their seminars is around how do we build the future that we want, essentially. So the first one is next week, and then there's one in June, 2 in June. So again, I'd really encourage you to get along to those. And on a similar theme, I've actually got a workshop coming up at the beginning of June on building the future workplace. It's kind of come out of conversations I've had with a number of people who are starting to look at, right, what do we want our workplace to look like? It's not going to be the same as it was because that's gone. So how can we make it what we want it to be based on people's preferences, people's needs, and everything that we've learned over the last year? So we're going to be using Lego Serious Play as the kind of methodology for that. It's going to be really good. You're going to really enjoy it if you get along. So that's the 3rd of June. So again, I'll send you more information on that. And then the Northumbrian Water Innovation Festival is happening again this year. I just thought I'd give them a quick plug. It's a way off yet. It's happening in October, but it's fantastic. And even though it's online, it's still amazing. So keep an eye out for that as it gets a bit closer. And I'd really encourage you to get involved. And I'm sure they'd welcome anyone who would like to take part as a facilitator as well. I was a facilitator last year, and it was brilliant. So if you're interested in contributing to that, I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. So I'll include some contact details in there as well. And then finally, our Design Means Business conferences that we held over the last 10 years are all online now. Most of the talks are online. There's some fantastic speakers we had from Aston Martin, from Nissan, from Nokia, from Motorola, from Philips. So if you've got a spare hour or two over the next few weeks and you want to learn some amazing stuff about design, that might be the place to go. So I'd encourage you to pay a visit. And I think that's it from me. So it's been a great morning. Thank you all for being here. I've loved seeing you again, as I always do. These Fridays are always the highlight of my month. And have a great weekend. And I look forward to seeing you, hopefully, next month. Sorry, I'm just clicking buttons here to try and get everyone back on. So, sorry, I'm just frantically clicking here so I can see you all. Right, there we go. So, yeah, lovely to see you all. Have a great weekend. See you next month. And enjoy the pub next week if you get there.
See you there, Terry.
Thanks, Terry. Fantastic.
Cheers, Terry.
Really great event.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Cool. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
It's your round, by the way.
You got that one in the end, Simon.
I've been saving for the last year, so that's fine.
Yeah, but you've been spending it on filling your wine rack.
That's true. And also the 36 cans of
I know
craft
you
beer.
sent that. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you on that one. That looked really good, that one.
It was. I've made a pyramid of beer, which I'm working my way through. So.
Oh, you want to do it like Jenga and just pull out one and see what they're full.
Have you seen what happens when a can of beer explodes, Julie?
Yes.
Yeah. It'd be such a waste, wouldn't it? It would be, yeah.
Julie, next time we have one of these, can you demonstrate your hula hooping skills? That's been intriguing me through the whole talk.
Honestly, it would just make you fall about laughing because I am so crap at it.
That's what we all need.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, I will demonstrate it when I have actually achieved what I wanted to with it, which is to lose some of the spare tyre. But actually, I think that the spare tire now being so bruised with the hula hoop, it's darker in the middle. So maybe it's one of those visual, you know, it gives the illusion that I've got the
Contouring,
nip.
is that what it is?
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'll do that for you, Simon, anytime.
I think I'm going to go on Amazon and get myself a hula hoop as well. Sounds like a good plan.
Hey, Terry, I wasn't sitting up high enough, but I'd just like you to know. There it is. There it is. Can you see?
Oh, you've got your badge on. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Nice
got my
one.
badge on. It's pointless though, but I've actually got a couple of them. I must have asked for them a few times.
I
So
think
I've
you
got a
swiped
few
a few,
badges
didn't you?
here.
Yeah.
So, you know, if anybody's lacking a badge that's a member, you've got to be a partner of DNN, then I could probably send a few out.
Yeah, I've got a few somewhere as well.
Yeah, that was a really good event. I've got loads of information from that one. Really enjoyed
It was packed with stuff, wasn't it? And I think it's a good job we have recorded it, because I didn't take a lot of it in.
Yeah.
So I'll post a link to the YouTube video on Monday, so you'll be able to watch it at your leisure.
I think it's a brilliant idea recording them, Terry. I mean, can you do
Isn't
that?
it? It's great.
When we go back to doing them live, will you be able?
Well, I've got to figure that out. So I think what I'd like to do when we go back to having a live event is that we'll have a laptop in the room as a delegate, so that and then I haven't quite got my head around how it's going to work, but I fully intend to have the best of both worlds. So we'll have the good bits about being.
Yeah, can you add that to your to-do list along with the location map of all the people who've attended?
Yeah, I'll get all that done by the end of the year, maybe. I have thought about that. I mean, I've thought about that many times, but yeah, if there's a bit of software I could use, I'm sure Google have got a bit of software to do that, haven't they? Where you just
Surely.
stick everyone's postcode and it'll do it.
That's really easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing that you could do is, you know, when you ask Terry for everybody to put their full name on, I've got my name and company on. Well, you don't need to do that. You could just put your name, you know, just for one event. You could say, can you take your company name off and just put on your location? Then if you capture in this, you know, if you capture the chat or anything like that, it's got all the details.
It'll be in there.
So you could, you know, post
And
process.
it'll be on the registration thing from Eventbrite as well. So
Yeah.
All right, I'll have a go.
Oh, go on. Go on.
Not as if I've got nothing else to do.
And the other thing I was going to ask before the clever digital people have all disappeared, is it just me, or when Terry puts his things on the wall there, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
Shall I tell you how I do it?
No, it's not. That's not what I was going to ask. It's the fact that when you're perfectly still, they're clear in vision. When you move, they blur on the screen. So is that something that anybody that's looking on can verify, first of all, or is it just me? Is that the way that's happening?
Same thing.
You're seeing the same thing?
Yeah.
It's
I think it's down to how the computers. Yeah, it's down to how the computer's processing the image. So the more things you've got that are static, the more passes it's doing over the same areas. So they're staying constant. So you get that nice crisp image. But the moment something moves, it's then having to refresh and rescan as if it's a brand new image. So everything then goes.
So we just need to put
out.
Terry in some sort of brace.
Yeah,
I just need to keep still. Because I do jig about a bit. I've been told that before. But I mean, I'm surprised that Zoom have had over a year to come out with lots of new features. And the only thing I've seen is that when you do the hand raising thing, you can now choose your skin tone. It's like, really, guys, is that all you could manage to come up with? Because I think, I mean, the reason I did that is that, yeah, we can share screens and all that, and it's fine. But I prefer it to be a bit like, you know, the way it used to be. But what I've had to do is create lots of virtual backgrounds and then flick between them as we go. It isn't a big deal, but I'm sure Zoom could do a much better job than I've done.
No, it's really good. I do like the way that you do that. It's a nice presentation style, and it keeps you sort of front and center. But it is literally just that, trying to keep you still.
Yeah, I'll do my best next time. I can't promise anything. I won't be hula hooping though, that's for sure.
I wonder if you could actually split the screen so that that area on your screen just stays fixed.
I mean, actually on YouTube, it does it really well on YouTube when someone shares the screen, because you have the main screen is the slides, and then there's a little window in the corner with the person speaking. So it looks quite good on the live stream. It's just doing it live, it isn't quite as good. So I've tried it. We'll probably stop using Zoom and then they'll bring out all these amazing features. But never mind. But fortunately, I have a green wall, so that acts as the perfect green screen.
You do have a beautiful green wall. Have you done any further decorating that we should be aware of?
I'm getting someone to tile my porch on Wednesday. I was going to do it myself because it's only small, and but I couldn't cut the bloody things. So I've got the tile nippers, and I've got a tile saw, and I've got so I'm getting the experts in. So that's getting done on Wednesday, I think. Or I'll show you a picture of something I bought for me landing.
Oh,
God. I'll do it offline because it's,
That's intriguing.
Immediately the rest of us are concerned.
Have you actually stopped recording this, Terry?
Well, I haven't actually. Is this going out live to the world?
Yes.
Okay. That's it. I'll just turn off the live stream. End stream.
I've got a reputation to